Recording now. And Pawan, you got to tell us what about how you're feeling that spring too. We all shared. Okay. Temperature is lower than Delhi. Hey, pluses. It's going to probably get to be hotter than Delhi. I don't know how hot Delhi gets, but we can do it. You can do a side-by-side comparison with your weather on your weather app or something. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen now, and hopefully you guys had a little bit of time to look at and acquire this repository for yourself. And just as a blanket note, please unmute yourself, shout, type into the chat anytime you like. If you need me to slow down, we are doing this first part as code along, and so yeah, I want this to feel interactive and hopefully, so just a nice small group, and some of you seem to already know each other, that will make it more possible. Okay, so 3 options for getting the repository. You can clone if you have a GitHub account. You can download the zip file by going to this code, download zip. That does not require you to know anything about GitHub to do that. You just get it zipped, you unzip it, and then you can open it up. And then this I learned also from Eric, because use this package has a use course function, and that pulls it down from GitHub for you and opens it up in RStudio. So you can type this into your RStudio console if you have a fresh, like if you open a fresh RStudio window. Okay. If you don't have the use this package, you might have to install it first. Okay. So can I get a green check mark, please, if you can? If you have this open. So basically I opened it up and I clicked on this sure, okay. And this .rproj for this repository, and that means in my upper right hand corner. Am I sharing screen? Can you guys see this?
Yep.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
Upper right hand corner, dplyr joins. If you can get to this screen, give me a green check mark, please.
Why is your studio interface blue?
I don't know. I
Did you
think I
choose
may
to
have
do
set
that,
it on
or-
dark
Probably made it
mode
blue.
at some point.
Okay, well, but it's not like, I think of dark mode as like gray or black, not blue. So it's very interesting.
I
There are
must have
lots of
selected.
there are different
Lots of
themes that you
choices.
can select, like hundreds of different ones.
Oh, I have not explored that. I could have a really cool looking RStudio instead of just the plain Jane one.
Yeah, you can have like black background with like red and green and yellow font, or you can have like everything in light blue, whatever you like.
Yeah. Although some of those options that you just mentioned sound kind of,
Painful.
you know, anxiety inducing to me. But yes, this is my color. And I learned about, yeah, there's many things you can do to customize this. So your screen might not look exactly like this, but if we can go down here on the file pane, and in addition to opening up the AR project, which looks like most of you are on, Pawan, how are you doing on this? And also Zoe, how are you guys? You just need another minute, or is there kind of an issue?
So mine for Zoe, I needed to re-download my RStudio, so it's just taking me a second to update,
Gotcha.
and then I'm downloading.
Yeah, I upgraded recently. We're going to talk about upgrades a little, updating a little bit today as well. So
You
okay.
also, I'll just note you may not see all the files, same files that Jessica sees, because she has hidden files visible. So that's okay if you don't see all of those.
Oh, I hadn't even know. Yeah, there's this under this settings tabby thing. There's show hidden files, and if I don't show them, it looks like that. And if you want to see all the hidden files, then a lot of the things that begin with dot, the files that begin with dot in their name will pop up. So you have this, I think you guys have the same ones I do. I think I put all these files on GitHub. All right, so let's navigate. I didn't put these in a separate folder, but just right on the main dplyr joins, I have this O1 wrangle data. And this in here, if I have kind of a starter script. So there's a very few things in the script, but hopefully we can all run them. Oh, is this an appropriate time to talk about Renv?
Oh yeah, I was just typing that in the chat. So if this is your first time opening this project up, you probably got a little note there that says use renv : restore to install packages recorded in the log file. And so you can go ahead and do exactly that, type that in there, and it'll install all the packages you need for this workshop.
You want to talk about why that is a necessary step to do?
Sure. Yeah. So renv is a way of managing package versions and dependencies and stuff like that. So if you have, for example, 2 different projects that need 2 different versions of dplyr or something, which is kind of the case here, that the reason why we're using it here, then you can do that with this R package called renv. And basically it lets you have a separate set of packages for every project. And so because we're using that with this project, when you start it up, it's like, hey, you don't have any R packages installed, basically is what it thinks, because it's using this local environment, like this local thing that's specific to this project. And we did that because we're going to be using some like brand new version of dplyr, and we didn't want to like make everyone upgrade their dplyr if you don't want to, because it might affect, you know, some other stuff you're working on. So that way it kind of just isolates it to just this project, just this class.
Thanks for that. Can you load 2 different, sorry, I'm reversing the order, but Andrew asks, can you load 2 different versions of the same package at the same time? In the same repo, or in
not
2
at the
different
same
projects?
time, like not in the same project at the same time, but you can have 2 different projects that have different versions. Totally.
I was wondering, because that would break my brain to have 2
Yes,
different
it's so
versions of
great. It
dplyr.
isolates them.
Yeah, that's generally not a good idea to have 2 different versions like at the same time. That's not gonna work. And then Iris is having an error installing mass.
I just reinstalled it and it seemed to work the second time.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, fantastic. Mysterious R messages. I mean, installation can always be kind of a bear. Okay, so mine was already in sync, of course. So hopefully everyone was able to run restore in the console, and that gets in the packages. And let's just run through, if you can follow along here and run through the libraries. So I'm using Control Enter to send that down. The ratdat is just the data package that we're using that has the complete old in it. So that's why here I can just do head complete old. We haven't read it in, but it's in the package ratdat. And so if any of you have ever taken the data carpentries style workshops with, you know, various, what is it? Pack rats and all kinds of rats in southeastern Arizona from Portal. This is the Portal data set. That's called complete_old in ratdat. So you can use head to check it out. We can look at the structure of it. It's a data frame of 16,000 plus observations and 13 variables. And it's got, you know, these dimensions. We can check out the column names. Specifically want to check out the column names, like, okay, so these are the column names. And the premise here is that, great, this is great. This data, though, if we were to check range, complete old $, year, it goes from 1977 to 1989. Let's pretend that we're operating in sometime in the past and like, oh, we just got our hands on fresh data. We're going to update this data set up to the year 2000, which is already, you know, 23 years ago at this point. But we're updating the data set. We get the data. The data does not come in exactly the way that it is in this complete old, but we want it to be. We want to have this complete data set of our 1997 to 1989 and also 1989 to wherever. Whatever, I think it's 2000 that this data set goes to. The data set that came in, maybe I'm no longer the fieldwork person. Maybe I have technicians or folks that I'm supervising who now are bringing me this data. They gave it to me in 3 ways. So that's in here in this data raw folder. If you want to go check that out in the files pane. They send me a plots_new CSV, a species_new text file, and a surveys new CSV. Okay, so now the job is to read them in and see what's going on and how I can take these 3 new files, combine them with each other, in a way that allows this to be directly combined with our complete old. So it needs to have these exact column names. I don't know how many rows it's going to have, but it needs to have 13 rows with these exact column names for us to be able to smoosh the two data sets together, right? So let's start with surveys, new, and problems. So when I read it in with read, so this is the readr packages read_CSV. It's referencing the surveys new CSV inside the data raw folder. We have some problem. We get a warning message and it's asking us to check the problems. And there's an issue here of a double. It expected a double. So this column, so in row 19, column 6, it expected a double, which means a numeric, right? Basically a number. And what it got was this 19 with a tick mark or a single, I guess it's a single parentheses after it, which you can't parse as or read as a number. So that's telling us there's a problem here. I'm glad, dplyr has this, has it kind of built in to do that. So first things first, I just want us to figure out this problem. Okay, so how can we do this? What the record, we can look at it by looking at head, surveys new, and then it's in row 19. So let's do n equals 20 so we can look at the first 20 rows. We'll include the problem. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hind foot length. Is it here? Under hind foot length for this particular record ID. Oh, it's actually this record ID. It's the 19th row, but it's got this header row. So it's actually row 18 of the data set. That's what the issue is. It's the 19th row if you include the headers. It's an NA here, but it was actually 19 with a tick. So I'm pretty sure that means it was a typo, right? I'm pretty sure someone intended to type 19 into this comment, into this column, and their finger slipped. So we want to go ahead and replace that. I am going to, so if you can follow along with me here, let's do a surveys clean. So we're trying to clean it, and we're trying to clean it in a format that can be matched with the complete old and can be matched with each other. So I'm going to take the surveys new. Do you guys use the Control-Shift-M at all for the shortcut for the pipe? Okay, so that's what I did there is Control-Shift, maybe that's Apple-Shift-M on a Mac to get that.
Yep, Command.
It looks a little, it looks different now, right? And I think this is because we're using dplyr 1.1. Someone correct me.
No, that's actually base R. So
this is base R.
Yep. So the new version of R, if you're using R, I think it's R 4.1 or greater, there's a native pipe that you can use without loading tidyverse. And it looks like that. There's a thing in the options for RStudio that you can decide whether you want Command-Shift-M or Control-Shift-M to put in that pipe or the one that which is the %. You can, there's a setting for that. But
they both work, right?
They both work. But that one that you've just typed only works when you have tidyverse packages loaded.
Okay. Gotcha. So this is no longer, I mean, this is not only in tidyverse anymore. And so the updated dplyr has nothing to do with the pipe. It's the R, the base R. Gotcha. Okay. Well, just in case you haven't seen it much, I think we're all pretty familiar with the % greater than %. I'm going to use this one today, although, you can do whatever one you're comfortable with. So I want to make this column hind foot length, a new column, replace the hind foot length. I'm going to use an if else. Because I want, and I know here that the NA is coming in at this ID 16896, and that's called record ID. So if record ID I'm using autocomplete to help me here. Is double equals to, oops, I didn't copy it. I just highlighted it. I'm gonna copy it. Copy and paste that so my fingers don't slip and make a typo. If it's that row, we're gonna make, if it's in that record ID, we're gonna make hind foot length equal to 19. We're pretty sure 19 with a tick mark means 19. We'll change it to numeric, and otherwise we'll just keep it as it is, so hind foot length. Okay. So if we have that, we won't have, I mean, all we did was kind of clean one of the NAs, but you can imagine you would do this process if there were a lot of various rows where there were problems or there were typos. It's part of the cleaning process. This is just one example how to do it. Okay, so I'm going to have us go into breakout rooms actually and talk about and so there's me, Kristina, and Eric, and we're gonna just see pairs of people. It looks like maybe one room will have three folks in it, and we're gonna have people talk about what they would do to this data set to make it each data set. So the first room will do surveys clean or surveys new. Next room we'll do species new, and the last room we'll do plots new. And the same idea, which is you can go ahead and create a new one that's called species underscore clean or plots underscore clean. You can talk about it, you can just explore it, you can pseudocode, or you can actually code, any of the above. And we're going to spend some time in the rooms, and one of us will be in there with you, so we can. So hopefully there will be one person who is the secretary and will be willing to share their screen and talk about when we get back together what's going on or what they found. Okay. Sorry.
So just to be clear.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, just to be clear, the goal of the breakout rooms work is what?
The goal is to how would you clean this data set so that it can conform and be merged with the complete underscore old. So
Cool.
as though you were getting new data and you want to add it to your existing data set. And I said, again, we're paying attention to the number of columns and also the column names. Can be a little bit hard because we have these three and we have to merge them together, which we're here to talk about, joining, which is why one of us is going to be in each room. So room 1 will do surveys clean. Room 2 will do species new or species clean. And room 3 will do plots clean. And so hopefully you'll have maybe only have one screen, but like one person, people can look on their own screens and then one person can like write the notes. And you don't, it does not have to be code, right? This is not like you must have this done by the end of the 10 minutes or whatever. Like it can be comments of like, what would you do to get it into that format? And I suggest starting with that. Like, what would you do? Write it out step by step. What are the problems that would prevent you from doing it right off the bat? There are deliberate issues with these data that are somewhat realistic, right? Okay, so how do I do this now? I think I'm going to stop share real quick so I can see my Zoom control board better. Uh-oh. I lost Zoom, so I don't, oh, but it's still recording. Oh, good. Okay, sorry about that. Breakout rooms. I want 3 breakout rooms. And I'll just assign automatically. No, I guess we have to let participants choose the room because I want me, Kristina, and Eric to be in 3 different rooms. Alrighty. And then try to be, should we, yeah.
I think, do you maybe want to sort of assign a data set to each person?
Yeah. I'm just going to count on my screen. I don't know how to do this fairly. So Andrew is 1, Carla is 2, Iris is 3, Hawan is 1, Tomash is 2, Val is 3, Zoe is 1, and Brian is 2. That's just how you guys appear on my screen. And if you are in the wrong room, it's all okay also. Okay, so let's go to those places. And Eric, do you want to, or I'll be in room 1. I think that's the hardest one. Eric, do you want to be in room 3? And Kristina, do you want to be in room 2?
Sure.
Okay,
That's fine.
let's go.
So, do we know which of the 3 raw data sets room 1 is supposed to be working on?
Room 1 is going to be surveys clean, so the first data set that was being read in, and then room
Okay.
2 is the species, and room 3 is the plots. But that is a good point. I will chat that out.
Yeah.
Surveys 2 equals species, and 3 equals plots. Right. Okay, well, I don't really want to share screen. I don't want to be the note taker. I guess I can heckle and offer commentary from the back here, and I feel like there was at least 1, maybe even 2 more people supposed to join us. So, or did they hear that the room 1 was hard and declined to do so? Boy.
I think some people didn't understand how to get into the breakout rooms.
Oh,
I think they thought it was supposed to be automatic, so there might still be people in the main Zoom chat.
okay. Well, I'm gonna go and chat to those folks and leave them momentarily. I'll leave you guys to it. Okay, be right back.
Okay.
Actually species ID, because in the surveys new we don't have the species name and taxa.
Okay. Jessica, it looks for most of us, packages are still installing, unfortunately.
Oh
No,
man.
I keep getting errors, sorry, but I'm
Mine
having to
just
follow
slow.
along. I just keep getting errors and errors.
This sounds
Is
like
it, so using rem restore didn't install the packages?
It failed. I mean, it tried, but it failed. For some reason.
it actually failed for me too, and so I just installed the packages like directly. That were
I
needed
tried
for
that
this.
too, and I kept getting errors. But we need
Unfortunate. You know, this first part, Carla, does not require an update to dplyr. So you
Oh, that
probably
is
already
true.
have all of the packages. I don't know why it's not letting you install them. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's weird, but okay. But I think Thomas, you have the document, right?
Yes, I do. I have it open.
So like,
There's
what
Jessica.
is-
Jessica, can you enable screen sharing?
Yes. Sorry, there you go. Are you guys having installation problems? I was just checking in on room 2 and they're having a lot of like a run restore apparently. It didn't work for Kristina or for
Oh no.
Carla.
I had to reinstall the 3 library packages. I just installed them and
Manually.
they
Yeah,
they
that'll work
reinstalled
fine.
everything.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Kristina, hello.
Hi. You're gonna have to enable screen sharing.
I just did. Sorry. about
Yay.
that.
Okay, good. I figured you were somebody that already pointed it out to, but cool. Okay. Thank you.
One of the things. Yes. Alrighty.
Cool. Yeah,
Okay,
so it looks.
but you guys have figured it out, even though run restore didn't work.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't run restore work? Huh. Well,
One
It
of the
worked for me.
packages might have been built from source or something, or I don't know, you know.
always a problem, even every time. Okay. You guys will figure it out. You guys have good hands with Eric. I'll see you guys later.
Okay.
Welcome back.
Thanks.
I was just talking about, so there's 2 different, like I have this problem all the time where I have 2 different column or sets of column names. So in my console, I'll typically just like get a sense of the commonalities between them. Definitely
Yes.
looks like record, sex. The date column is going to need cleaning.
Yeah,
from
it's
the
the month,
surveys
day,
new.
year format versus all in one column. So that'll need cleaning. And it looks like some columns are just missing, which
For
is
sure.
also fine. Right, because that's what the other folks are working on. They're working on species and they're working on plots. So it's okay that we don't have genus through plot type. We just have to work up through weight. So we need to match it from the first one, record ID up to weight.
Oh, and it even looks like Yeah, so in the complete old surveys,
Mm-hmm.
so let me click. So the complete old month column, that's been coded as like a 1 to 12.
Mm-hmm.
And then the complete old day is obviously the day of the month.
Mm-hmm.
So personally, I would find that quite annoying. I would just have, but I'm not going to change that. I would put it all as a date time formatted column.
Mm-hmm. I
So
mean, that would be
Lubritate
my
would-
want too, but I think this is an excuse to also show the Lubritate packet. It was,
Exactly.
designed to showcase Lubritate a little bit and some of the functionality in there. So yeah, so we've already, so I mean, I don't know if someone's taking notes, maybe Zoe, you could record it in yours just even as comments, but one thing we have to split the date column into month, day, year. And I mean, that's the first thing. And the other thing I think would be worth doing, there's an issue in one of these. I can't even, I mean, I can look at my notes, but it might be worth using the summary function on each of the numeric columns and seeing what's going on. Like plot ID. Yeah, we can look at.
Not a bad idea.
Yeah, I'm going to do STR on surveys. New on mine. Yeah, so the record ID is numeric. Date is, of course, a character string. Plot ID is numeric, but we're not doing anything with plot ID. Species ID is character. Sex is character.
Oh. Shouldn't call it on a comment. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, can't
Yeah.
call it on a column. There you go. Yeah, I'm looking at exactly that output. And we'll just want to check that that is the case. So I'm going to go back to my head complete old. MF, yep, that looks right. And then the last thing, so the numbers, the ones that are numeric, and the ones that are character. So like first, like vector type, I feel like can be problematic when you're trying to join things. R will not let you combine into one column vectors of two different types. So that first thing to check, and then I think I want to check the numbers. So I'm going to do summary on, say, species, surveys new, $, and hind foot length and weight are, I think, the numeric, like that's like the data that they got, right? They caught some rodents and measured their feet and put them on a scale.
I don't know if you've noticed this too, but so the survey's new. We read that in as a table data frame, which is a type of special object used by the tidyverse. And then the data frame type object, you notice how like the syntax or the highlighting all the colors
it is different. It's because we
one.
use the read underscore CSV. It makes it into the tidyverse style.
Exactly.
But I think they're still joinable because underneath the hood, it's still a data frame. But we might end up with the whole object being a tidyverse style. But then if you save it out as a CSV, it'll just be a CSV again, and you can read it in whatever you want. So when I'm doing summary, Zoe, and I don't know if have you used the summary function before?
No, I don't think so.
You can use it on a numeric. I guess you could use it on other vectors too. Typically, I use it on a numeric vector, and it just tells me like the minimum. It tells me the minimum, mean, minimum, first quantile, median, mean, third quantile, max, and the number of NAs. So that's just it's handy enough to do.
Yeah.
And so I just did it on hind foot length, and that looks. I'm no rodent scientist, but that looks normal. Nothing jumps out at me. And then I'm going to do it on weight. And that is where the problem is. So there are no NAs for weight, which is interesting because, these rodents bite and they are very slippery. And so it makes sense that there's a bunch of, there's NAs. And so suddenly there's no NAs in weight. And then the maximum maximum weight is 9999. So yeah, if you could type in, surveys new pipe to summary. Oh, this one you'll have to call a column. This one have,
Yeah,
or you can do, I guess if you did summary on the whole thing, what would it give you? Let's find
I'm
out.
pretty sure it'll give you an error. Oh, no.
Oh, it does it for, oh, this is nice. It does it for all of them? Can you see it all?
Yes, it does. Record ID, date, plot ID, species. Here, let me,
Perfect. This is an even better view, better than what I was doing. So yeah, you can see the hind foot length has 1300 or 1300
sorry,
NA.
let me clear that and I'll run that just so we get a clear console.
There we go. Perfect. Yeah, and then but the maximum weight is 9999, which I don't think rodents weigh that much.
So that's telling us there's an error. Correct.
Yeah. Have you encountered people using 9999 in place of NA before, ever?
I haven't, no.
It's like a holdover. I think, you know, from what I understand of like MATLAB, you can't have a column that's like both numbers and letters. And so people would use 9999 or negative 9999 sometimes as an improbable value as a substitute for NA, which is fine as long as that's documented or someone found it. Because if you didn't find this, you would like do your summary statistics and it'd be obscured by all these really obscenely heavy rodents. But we should, so that's another to-do then. So we need to like, at least for the weight column, it seems to not be a problem in the other columns, but in the weight column, tell it 9999 should be interpreted as an NA. Okay, so. And then we have to deal with the dates. And I think that is pretty much it. So that's not too bad. What should we, let's do the weight thing first, because I think the date, that's gonna require the figuring out some new functions. So if we can go back up to our, wherever your species surveys clean is, we can add to that, right? So we've got surveys clean gets, surveys new, piping into the mutate where we fix that one problem. So if we add another pipe at the end of it, oh, actually, it's in the same mutate. Never mind. Sorry. We can do a comma after the end of the if else and do a comma because we're still mutating here. We're creating another column. We're going to call it weight again. And what are some ideas? Like, how would does anyone have any idea of how we can make this new weight? We could use we could use the similar logic to the line above, actually. Do you have any suggestions, Zoe? Because here we want to take anything that's any row that's equal to the value is equal to 9999 and we want to turn it into an NA.
I guess it would be if else and then whatever the column name for weight is.
Yep, it's just weight.
Oh, okay, so then yeah,
Ooh,
weight
dplyr if else. Interesting.
Yeah.
equals
Yeah.
9999.
I'm just curious if this is.
I don't actually know very much about dplyr if else. Hopefully it's largely similar.
It's very similar. The real difference is with if else, there's a yes and no.
Mhm.
If there's a with dplyr's version of if else, yes, no, and missing. So I usually like use a NA for the missings.
Okay. I'm being requested right now to join room 3, but Andrew, I trust you have this, both of you, in good hands. And just going to use the lubridate month, day, and year functions to get the new columns. Sit in the same, can be done in the same mutate. Okay, I'll be back. Bye, guys.
Hey, I was about to tell you we have a plan.
Okay, what is the plan?
Datasets wide. It's a single row.
Mhm.
We got to pivot it longer.
Mhm.
The values in that single row, we believe are the plot underscore type column. The column names are all like plot 1, plot 2. The number from the column names, we believe, is plot underscore ID.
Yeah, that's going to match plot ID later.
And that's going to match up with the surveys clean data set. So we're going to have to join those up somehow.
Yeah, so they need, so if one is numeric and the other is character, that's going to be difficult to join. So you're going to have to do some kind of cleaning there to get the
make sure they're the same data type. Yep.
Awesome. That sounds like a plan. Are you ready to implement this plan?
We're ready for your guidance on how to implement this plan. Or are we supposed to just try it out?
You're supposed to just try it out.
Okay.
This is the part, sorry. I mean, it was like tidyverse experience is like appreciated.
Yeah.
I mean, also between Val and Eric, I'm sure you guys can figure it out. And so this is a bit of a review. This is anticipating you had already taken some of the data. Gosh. Software carpentry, data carpentry lessons up to this point, but so it's kind of a review. So see what you can do.
I wasn't sure if we were supposed to do it or what, but that's perfect.
Do. Well, good idea. I'm gonna go check in on room 2 to make sure that they got that as well.
Yeah, sounds good.
Good luck. Bye.
Yeah, no problem.
Troubleshooting, like that maybe you would expect. Like maybe there's a species ID PA in surveys new that's not in species new. And so you would then expect the taxa columns that are added to be NAs. And so those are the sort of like just being aware of your data and what's in it. It can be really helpful. And so, I mean, one way you could easily or somewhat easily do these is to do the function unique on surveys new species ID. And that would return all of the unique codes that are in that column. And then you could compare them against the ones in species. I don't know. Unique is a function I use all the time. It's not a special dplyr function. It's just a baseR function. But I use that a lot on columns to see just like what the unique values are in a column. Oh, hi, Jessica.
Hi, just lurking, just making sure that, so you guys are discussing what you could do, and also feel free to implement once you discuss in code what it is. Kind of assumes that folks have some experience with tidyverse, but if you know how to do some of the things that you guys are talking about, go ahead and code it up too.
I think I don't have much experience with combining. The only thing that I used in the past was cbind, I guess. But I'm not sure if it's the function we're gonna use here.
Right. So actually, I should have been more clear. My apologies. I was pretty thrown off by getting kicked off of Zoom. I panicked for a moment there. It's like, everything is terrible. No, the idea is not to join it together yet, because you guys have one piece and my room has one piece and Eric's room has another piece, right? And we're going to stop. We're gonna take a little break and then we're gonna talk about joins and then we're gonna join. So right now is not joining yet or using cbind or any of those. It's how are you gonna get this data set in a format that it could be joined, because the column names have to be the same and the column types have to be the same. And if there's other errors in there, like if there were spelling mistakes or there were, like in my room, in a data set 1, there's like date is in one format and then the complete old has dates in a completely different format, so we have to like transition between formats. Is this kind of work that we're doing in these break rooms right now, not yet quite joining, leading up to joining.
And I think
the barriers to joining is this stuff.
They have successfully identified, I think, one of the main things that needs to change in species new.
Oh yeah,
which is the data set we're assigned.
Okay. And what's that, and what is that?
We need to split species
Okay.
into 2 separate columns.
Oh, into genus, species,
Genus
and
and species.
species. Gotcha. You
Yeah.
guys feel comfortable doing that? Maybe? What are some, so what are some there is a function, maybe you guys can look up, called separate.
Okay. Let's look for that function.
Yeah, look it up. That's not one that I use off the top of my head. I'd have to Google it too and look at exactly what it does. But that's the hint.
Separate.
All right,
Okay.
I'll leave you guys to it. I gotta go supervise room 1 again.
Okay.
You know what? Just gonna print head.
Hello. Oh my, that is very rainbow and beautiful.
Okay. So when we call just the column, it looks like we hit all of those NAs or all those
Yay.
999s as NAs.
And we can do survey. We can do that piping it into summary again. and
Yeah,
see
let's do
what the
that.
Summary looks like. It looks better now.
Yeah, so it looks like we've got 1,575 NAs now. You can see
Nice.
that brought our max. Let's I'm gonna grab this code right here, duplicate it. Call this not. Actually, I'll just call this replaced. Row. I would probably never do this.
Wait, yeah, what are we doing?
Yeah, so like to see what I actually did.
Oh.
So you would do. So I want to know what effect I just had.
Okay, so you're isolating these different parts. In real life, you'd chain them together and
Yes.
them one into
Yeah.
another, but okay, gotcha.
And actually, I probably would build. Yeah, this is a lot. It's not that much method chaining, like piping together, but
No,
I definitely want to understand
what
how
the
our weight
effect
just
was.
changed. Yeah, so we were at 873 before we replaced those.
And now the mean is
999s.
33.
Now we're at 33, yeah.
And especially if we were more familiar with this kind of data, we could use our common sense and knowledge of the system to say, yep, that makes sense, or nope, that makes no sense, kind of thing. Perfect. Okay, so let's get on with I think if we're good with this, let's move on to the days, the day, month, year. That will require some lubridate functions.
All right.
And actually, we could keep chaining until it's in that mutate. Like we could keep doing it. We're making new functions, so it's all in that, or making new columns. So it's all inside that mutate, actually. If you wanna...
Yes, we could. I would argue that and it's a matter of preference, but when you do so much method chaining, like you kind of want to explain why you're replacing that data. And when you've got like one thing would be to do.
Yeah, we could comment inside the method chaining.
Comment.
That would be fine.
That would be I've
very
already written
informative.
a comment.
Yeah, you already made comments, so.
Yeah. This can get a little cluttered too.
Yeah, well, I understand though. Like, you want to know later, like much later when you've completely forgotten what your code does. You want to be able to be like, oh, what was so special about record 16896, right? It's like, it's not informative just by itself.
Just gonna add same kind of comment.
Mm-hmm. Yep, the dreaded 9999.
I've never seen that before. 999.
I have. Have you ever downloaded like old school like weather data? Weather station data gives me that. At least it used to. It used to when I was in grad school. Maybe people have figured it out that it doesn't. it doesn't trigger enough warning, because if it's like,
Yes.
you don't know to look for it, and so it's not a great signal of not NA, right?
Yeah, so if we did want to do another chain, we would just put in another comment.
Putting date into day, month, year.
I think it was, yeah. I like to use the original column names, like pretty exactly, so I know exactly what I am replacing. Also, it makes find and replace actually work.
Yes, exactly. Okay. Okay. So we're going to use lubricate functions to do this. And Zoe, you can type in your code, in your version, whatever notes you find useful. So here, I think it would actually be another mutate, because we're making new columns, and mutate is the dplyr function for making new columns.
Yeah, and if I just, let's see, put a comma
Put a
right
comma
there.
there, and then take out the pipe for now.
Yep.
And we'll just,
Yeah, let's so
change.
let's start with the day, creating a
Yeah.
day column.
Yeah.
You know, we could even, if we wanted to, do a transmute, which would drop the date, month, day, year column, and then make a day, month, year column. We'll probably just keep with the mutate for now.
Yeah, just because I think, you know, people are familiar, and then we're gonna select, and we're gonna do negative date later, and that's like, yes, it's another step, but it's kind of this is kind of a review of things you have done in tidyverse with dplyr and putting it all together. Okay, so lubricate has a function called day, and it will take a date format, and it will extract the data and put it in as a number, numeric, just as you guys checked for the complete fold. Zoe, have you seen this lubricate ... or ...
I know what like the ... does, but I
Great.
haven't used lubricate before.
Okay, great. Well, lubricate, I deal with dates and times all the time, and I think Andrew does too. So like, it's fantastic. And so in here, you'd want to put the date column, but of course, Andrew made a good point. You want to put the exact name of the date column. You might copy and paste even, because it's a little funky. It's kind of long and funky. Yes, Kristina, hello.
Oh, hi. I was gonna say, I think we're the other two groups are done, but I think you said this was the most difficult one. What is with these rainbow things going on?
Yeah, I don't even know. Kristina, can you get everyone else back into the main room and just say, take a break until 12:10?
They are in the main room, and I'll let them know to take a break too.
So, I can turn it off.
No, you don't need to. I was just curious about like.
It just here under
indents.
Code and display.
Yeah, you should.
You can also do rainbow lines.
I like finding out about
I like
these
that.
things.
Yeah, that's nice too.
This is super cool. What are the what are the line? You've like got red. The line numbers are like red.
Oh, that's just syntax highlighting. That's under completion.
And it's like warning you of an error.
Yeah.
Interesting. So this is one of the reasons teaching is awesome, because everybody knows all these different things, and you know, like everyone has something cool and neat to contribute that like I've never seen before. So thanks for sharing. Sorry to distract y'all. I will go do my duties.
Thanks, Kristina. So that should take us today, right? And we'll check that. Whoops.
All right. Yeah, that's
Always
what
a
I was
thing.
going to look at. Yeah, so this error message is a parsing failure. This type of class, we should really look at.
Ah, I remember what I did for this. Okay, so before this, let's do a date. Yeah, let's check that. It's not in a parsed format, is it? Because it's not
Let's
standard.
see.
So we in the US like to do month, day, year, and month, day, year is very unclear as to whether it's which one's first. But that's the standard. I mean, I'm used to it. I grew up here, right? So that's the format I'm used to, but it's not the standard format. So if we want it to be standard format, which is all that, you know, these, then we need it, which is what read underscore CSV. If it were in standard format, it would put it into a date format for us, but it's not standard. So we have one extra step up here after the wait, comma one, or the wait mutate. I'd like us to do, and sorry, I'm gonna, just in the interest of speed, Andrew, can we do this a little bit faster? Is let's make a date column. Before the
Date or
day.
day?
Before day, like so above that line.
Okay.
Let's make a date column. Yeah, there.
Yeah, I'll put it right here.
Date equals, and we're gonna use still the lubridate function. So let's do the lubridate : MDY.
Yeah.
And then,
oh, no, sorry, not that. Yeah, it's the.
What? MDY.
It was confused. MDY.
Parentheses,
function.
and then you can type pop in the column name, which is a little.
Yes, so it's month, day, year.
Oops, it needs an open parenthesis or open quotes, I guess. I think. And then a comma on the end of that. And then, yeah, if you do the day now, if we can, or do you want to just run that so far?
Sure. I'll need to close that.
Okay, gotcha. Huh. All formats fail to parse. There's one warning in mutate. Why did this work for me? What did I do?
I think it's interpreting this as a literal string. Let's try this. Yeah, so another one of my personal pet peeves is when a column is encoded with spaces and then even worse, parentheses and slashes.
Yeah, that's so terrible.
Yeah.
Is
Let's
that
see.
the problem? Is it like does it need to be like backticks or something?
Possibly.
No.
Because we are
Oh,
piping.
it needs to be in backticks. Yeah, it needs to be in backticks.
I should be in backticks, but
So you're getting a warning that 6 failed to parse, but we're gonna just ignore that issue. It's because they put, well, you can check the warning, right?
yeah,
How
let's
do we
do
check
that. Problems. Pretty sure you can just call problems. Nope. Oh no, it's warnings.
Warnings, I think.
Yeah.
But it won't tell you what the actual problem is? Or do you have to put warnings and then you put the name of the.
I'm not sure how to do it with lubridate. I know with the reader R's CSV, that should work. I don't know how to do with this.
Oh, this is how I did it. Okay. I looked at so it just turns, so when it fails to parse, it turns it into NAs, and we're gonna accept that for now, but you can look up the NAs in this one. The issue is that it has April, I think it's April 31st, and someone wrote down on their sheet and got recorded as April 31st, but there's no actual real date that is April 31st. I imagine the same would happen if you tried to put in a leap day on a non-leap year, that kind of thing. But this will take us enough to do those day, month, year. And I know everyone's going to join the room and add a 12:10 again. So I'm hoping we can
Okay.
do a comma back to day equals, and that looper date day should work now on this date. And you don't have to type the
Okay.
whole
So
dang
you're
thing.
gonna nice. And then you're gonna bring in the date column.
Yeah, use the date column. Yep.
Oh, sorry, no.
No, yeah, just the date. Just DATE.
Yeah.
Close. Well, I don't
Don't
know. Oh,
autocomplete. There we
gotcha.
go.
Sometimes
Let's
autocomplete's
see.
your friend,
Oh,
sometimes it's
yeah.
not your friend. Okay.
Yeah.
It's still going to have that
6
warning, but I think that worked. We can check it. We can click somewhere and like open up this surveys
Yeah.
report.
Oh, you know what? Let's do that. Let's just
Yeah.
do a view.
Let's just do a view. Oh, that's the
That's
old one. This should be the
Oh,
surveys.
I'm not.
You didn't call it
It's-
surveys clean,
Yeah,
but that's okay.
I'm not ready to call it clean.
It's not clean yet, but yeah,
Yeah,
there we go. It
there we
got
go.
the day out. And notice that, yeah, the difference between column that's date, month, day, year, and then the date at the end there is, it's in standard POSIX format now, which is year, month, day with dashes in between, not slashes. So, okay, looks good. Let's do that for a month and also year.
And I'm just gonna pipe this to you.
Okay. Does it take us to the view automatically? Oh,
Sorry, little. What? Oh, you know what? When you do a pipe, it doesn't actually.
oh, interesting.
It does like a dot. That's
Huh. I never pipe into view. I just click. But
yeah.
that's me. Okay, so you can type the command view to look at it as well.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I think we should do is remove both the date, month, day, date, year column and the date column. So I would close that and pipe it into a select.
A negative select. Okay, gotcha.
Yep, negative select. You're very good about making sure you're using the dplyr functions. That has definitely
so
caused problems before.
There's a couple packages that will import older versions of dplyr functions that I need for stats. They're stats packages, but they cause function masking where I like need to call the right function, but I can't.
Yeah, I've had that too. Sometimes unknowingly until I try to rerun it again and it just fails on you.
So we need to get rid of date
and
then
also
that funky
the long
right?
one, the long version of date. Okay, let's run that.
Okay.
And check out the view.
Probably just my computer being a little slow.
No worries. Hey, we have the right columns. They're not necessarily in the right order, but I'm not sure if that matters for bind rows. So we'll figure that out.
It doesn't.
Fantastic.
As long as they've got exact matches.
They have to have exact matches, right? Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. Good job, team. Good job, Andrew. And let's go back to the main room. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
I think I'm going to close all the rooms in 4. Well, everyone's already back here except for my room. I'm going to just go ahead and close all the rooms. There we go. As promised, my room had the most to do. It was not a very balanced design for the 3 breakout rooms. I apologize.
All right.
And I think that What should we do? Can we have a report back from each room? Let's start with room 3, actually. Let's start in reverse order. That was Val and
Sure.
Eric and Iris were in that room. Who wants to report back?
Could be
I
me.
nominate not Eric because I know Eric.
It probably shouldn't be. Maybe Val, you want to tell us what we did?
I mean, sure, I can tell everybody what we did. So basically, we first looked at the, so our data set contained information on the plots, so the plot IDs, as well as on what type the plot was used for, so whether it was a control condition or whether it was a different kind of condition. And so we looked at it and found that it was in wide format. And so we pivoted it longer to be in a long format. And then the second thing that we had to do was that all the columns were named plot 1, plot 2, plot 3, and so on. So we had to remove this plot space information and then transform that number into numeric values so it would match what we had in the previous, in the survey's old, basically. And I can put the code for that in the chat if people want that, or
Please, I was just about to ask for that. If you could do your plots clean underscore or plots underscore clean, that whole code, and everyone can copy and paste that into under where their plots new is. I'm going to do the same. Just going to copy and paste.
Sorry, Eric, I changed your code very slightly to be more my style.
Love it. Perfect.
Kristina was just commenting, this is everyone codes a little bit differently and has different settings, and it's interesting and it's nice to be able to see because otherwise it's just you and yourself coding away. All right, room 2. I'm going to say the same thing. Someone to report back who is not Kristina, because I know Kristina knows this also.
Yes, yeah, I can report back. So what we noticed is that on our data set, we have no problem for like reported, but we noticed that we had to split a species column into 2 genus and species because that's how the old document was formatted. So that's what we did using the separate function.
Great. If you could also drop the code for your species clean into the chat for all of us, we can copy and paste.
It is in the
Tomas
it is in the chat.
had to leave early and
I wasn't in this room.
paste it in.
Sorry,
Yeah,
not in my
I
chat.
will
I think you just have to read. I can't see it either, so I think
paste
you just
that
have to copy and paste it again.
I can do that. We want it. You want it to be called species underscore cleaned.
Just clean. Yes.
Clean.
Please.
Okay.
And
yeah, unfortunately, the Zoom chat like deletes itself as you go into and out of breakout rooms. So.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it was there. You just can't. We just couldn't see it anymore.
Yeah. Well. Oh, you guys didn't do the pipe into. Okay. Gotcha. Okay, there we go. Now I have it formatted in the style I like, sorry. Okay, lastly, but not leastly, Andrew, could you report back for us?
Sure, yeah, we had a couple things going on. So we had a column in the original data set called date, then parentheses, month / day / year. So we split that into 3 columns, day, month, year. So that's how the completed data set needs to look. And then the other problem we had was there in the weight column in the surveys new, the weight column was coded as 999, and that was to identify missing values. So we did an if-else statement to replace all of those 999s as NAs.
And we were the unlucky group to have to deal with dates. So the dates had 2 levels. First, we had to convert them into a readable because it was inserted as month, it was typed as month, day, year, which is not parsable by dplyr or read underscore CSV. And then we had to extract the date. So it took a couple of tries. And Andrew was also very thorough about annotating what each line does, because it is true when you have a large block of code, it's difficult to tell, but there it is for us. You guys can copy that over too. Oh, and then at the end, he dropped the date columns because we want to have the exact columns that will match the exact column names and the exact column types that will match the complete old so that those can be bound together. Okay, so if everyone has that, I'd like you here, I guess I can share screen for this part. I also just copied and pasted from the chat. So in my first section, I have surveys clean. And it does have a warning message. We didn't have time to get to the last problem. The last problem is that there are some April 31st in the date column, which you would then have to go in and either remove or like put in May 1st manually, perhaps with another if else. I'm going to read this in and doing, wait, where am I? Oh yeah, the species one just had to separate. That was pretty straightforward. There were some additional pieces. Should be okay. And then the plot's new and the plot's clean. We're in kind of 2 steps, 1 step for the pivoting, 1 step for the string conversion, numeric, string splitting and conversion stuff. So hopefully at this juncture, we can be comfortable with what we have. If we do surveys underscore clean, we have, what is this? 9 columns, and these names look really similar. They're not necessarily in the same order. Apparently, if you use like cbind or rbind, you would have to be the exact order. But in tidyverse, that's been fixed, so we don't have to have it in the exact order as long as they're the same exact name and the same exact type. I'm going to check out species clean. Can spell. Okay. Characters, we've got genus and species have been split, looks good. And then lastly, I'm going to check out plots. Okay, so now it's long format. Instead of one wide thing, it's got 24 rows and 2 columns, got plot ID and plot type. And the plot ID is now numeric, which is, as before, it was character string. So now, hopefully, and I mean, I can do one last final old, compare it to that. I mean, some of these I think were integer. That should be fine. Integer and numeric will be able to be matched up. Just a brief glance over. I think this should be matchable to the old one, but we're not there yet, right? Because these are 3 separate things. We can't we can't combine 3 separate data frames with this complete old. We have to do something first, and that's the right reason why you guys are here. So I'm going to continue sharing, but move over to my slides. Which is, didn't even talk about our agenda today, but we have done these 3 steps already. We looked at our new data, we sketched out what we were going to do, and then we wrangled that data. Well, you guys in the breakout rooms wrangled the data. And I'm going to talk about dplyr joins and this non-equi joins thing, although that is very new, but if it works, if it's something that applies to you, you'll be very excited. If it's something that doesn't apply to you, you'll be like, huh, I don't know when I'm going to use this. So we'll see. Okay, these materials, the stuff about dplyr. So all of that lesson material that we were just working on and wrangling, that came from Michael Clochamar, who used to be at the U of A. And everything in these slides are from this R4DS. Many of you may have already seen this book, but there's a 2nd edition that's online available already. I guess it hasn't been proofed or anything. This is a picture from the 1st edition, but it's got this dplyr 1.1 functionality explained there. So first thing about joining and for having these different tables is to know about keys. And it's something that if you guys had ever used gather and spread from like free dplyr days, there was one of the argument was they're called keys and values, right? And so I remember Googling madly every time I had to use gather or spread instead of now it's called pivot wider and pivot longer. And like trying to remember what was a key and what was a value was just always kind of like, I knew it was a term. It was a term I probably should know, but I didn't really know what it was. And so here I'm going to define it for you guys. A primary key is one or a set of variable that uniquely identifies an observation. And a foreign key is that same one or set of variables that corresponds to each row or primary key of the first table. So foreign key is kind of like, it's like your table versus the other table, and the two are connected to each other. And so in our examples, we've got surveys clean. It's got our, I don't have every single column name on here, but the first couple. And we've got species clean and plots clean. So in each of these, can someone volunteer what the primary key is for each of these three tables?
So it seems that for the species clean, we have species ID, and that maps to the surveys clean species ID. So I guess I don't know which one we want to merge, but if we think that surveys clean is our primary key, then species ID would be the foreign key for species clean, right?
Yeah, so species ID in this table, so thinking about just this table, the primary key is just like every table has it, regardless of thinking about other tables. You've got the species ID and it's unique. So we've got however many species IDs, they were unique, and that's how long this table was. It defines how many rows your table has. And similarly for surveys clean, you've got record ID. That's just this number. It was really long, but there was tens of thousands of them. And then same thing with plots ID. I think it was 24 plots. So the plot ID was like 1 through 24. And Val also alluded to the foreign key. So when we're trying to connect to another one, yeah, this species ID here, whoops, I was going to use the draw function. Aha, yes. This species ID here, this is the foreign key that corresponds to the primary key of this table. And this plot ID is the foreign key that corresponds with the primary key of this table. So that is how they're going to be joined. And this is, of course, a simple example. We're only dealing with one variable that is joining. We're not, sometimes it takes multiple to join tables together. This time we're dealing with a pretty straightforward case of a one-to-one correspondence here. And so the idea here is that none of the data in surveys clean is repeated, right? Every single, or we're not repeating, besides these foreign keys, we're not repeating information. Each record has its own unique information about each rodent that was captured. But, you know, the genus and the species and the taxa of that species ID, that would just be repeated information. So here we're it's kind of like storing it smaller by putting it in a separate table, not repeating that a whole bunch of times. And same thing with plots. There's only 24 plots, and those 24 plots have a pre-assigned treatment to them. And so if we saved it all over here, we'd be repeating that information, like plot 1 will always be a control, or whatever plot 1 actually happens to be. So we don't need to repeat that a whole bunch of times. We can save on storage by separating these pieces of information into their own unique tables. But then sometimes we want to join them all together because we want to do statistics. We want to make plots. We want to, you know, whatever it is, you're going to build a model. It is important to be able to join them back together again. And this understanding of keys is how we're going to do it. Okay, so you probably also know that there are a number of joins. If you ever looked it up on the documentation in dplyr. And the idea of joins is you take two data frames, you got an X and a Y, and you push it through a join function, one of the 6 join functions, and you get a single data frame out on the end. I've colored these 2 different colors because, well, first, the X and the Y, the order of the rows and columns is primarily determined by X. So the first one you use in the first data frame you add to your join function. And we have these 4 kinds. These purple ones here are mutating joins. I'll define that in a moment. And these 2 down here, semi-join and anti-join, are filtering joins. And fortunately for us, mutate and filter are dplyr functions that we should be somewhat familiar with. So filtering joins, just as their name says, is that the primary purpose is to filter the rows of a data frame by another. So you have this giant database of something and you're looking for only for certain matches. You can have another data frame with those, and you can filter the first long one by the second one and extract out only like using filter, you're extracting only the observations you're currently interested in. The resulting data frame of these filtering joins will have the same number of columns as X. So if you go in with 6 if your X data frame has 6 columns, you will still have 6 columns when it comes out. You're not adding to them. It's not adding to them, it's just filtering. And so we have semi-join and anti-join, and they are actually opposites. And anti-join is one that Eric has mentioned in an earlier workshop on data cleaning and data validation, I believe. It's particularly useful for spotting differences between data frames. You think, you know, if you do the double entry method, and you have 2 people putting in data from their field sheets, and one person's finger slips here and the other person's finger slips there, you can use anti-join to figure out where the mismatches are, and then go back and try to figure out what the actual recorded data happened to be. But we're not mostly talking about filtering joins today. I think many of us, and the ones we're interested in for this exercise, are mostly going to be mutating joins. That's all I'm going to say about filtering joins. Mutating joins is like mutate, right? And many of you, or maybe it was only our group, I think only our group used mutate. Well, room 1 used mutate to convert to that, to do almost everything, but mostly to convert that date column into month, day, and year. We were adding columns with the mutate function. So that's why these are called mutating joins, because you're actually going to end up with more columns than you started with, right? So the keys, so whatever the things that you're joining on, whether that's species ID or plot ID, those keys will appear first in the columns, then all of your variables from X, and then all of your variables from Y. So you're going to end up with more columns than either one that you started with, either data frame you started with. And for me, like almost 100% of the time, I'm using a left join. And I think Hadley said something like 90% of the time, you're probably interested in a left join. So, well, I'm going to talk about the others just so that we know what they are, and logically you can kind of build that framework in your head, but know that in practice, left join is the most common. The output's going to have the same number of rows as X. In our data set, and I'll switch back to this, switch back to these real quick. So I have these STRs running here. Which of these are we interested in being the X data frame in our left join? So this table has 18,000 rows, and we have the species table that has 54 rows and the plots that has 24 rows. Which one are we interested in keeping the same number of?
Probably the surveys clean because it has the most amount of rows, so we don't want to get rid of data.
That's exactly right. We're very good, Zoe. So every single recording here is a painstaking someone going out there, emptying a trap and weighing the darn rodent, right? And recording there's 10 years or so of that data going out multiple times a year. So we do not want to get rid of anything. We want to preserve every single row of this, even though some of the values are NAs, we want to preserve every single row of this. What we want to do with our left join is to add this information that is here about the species and taxa, add that in here, replicating it for all 18,000 rows. And we want to add, similarly for plots, we want to add what kind of plot type it was and replicate that information for 18,000 plus rows. There's nothing in here that we want to get rid of. So in our left joins that we're going to do, this surveys clean is going to come first. It's going to be the X data frame of our left join. Okay. Visualizing these joins. So pretend that we have this X data frame. It's got the key here is numeric. It's 1, 2, and 3. And we have this join, this data frame, Y, which has got key of 1, 2, and 4. And for each of these, I'd like us to think about which rows would be present. So an inner join, I haven't defined this for you yet, but I'm telling you right now that inner join will only output the rows, the keys that are present in each data frame. So which rows would be present? And would there be any rows or columns that are NA? I might need to grab a visual of this. This is, if you can think about a Venn diagram, the inner join is the intersection, the overlap of that Venn diagram. Should have added a picture.
So I think since we have the X data frame going first as like the left and your inner join XY, right? We continue to have rows 1, 2, and 3 from the X data frame, and we'd continue to have rows 1 and 2 from the Y data frame, but would we not have the 4th row because it's not in the data frame X?
Yeah, you've answered that perfectly for left join, which is the one that I have been talking about. It's my bad. I haven't been talking, I neglected to explain an inner join. An inner join is only going to take the common keys from both X and Y. So it's that intersection of the Venn diagram. Does someone else want to take a stab at what an inner join, which rows and columns would be at the result of an inner join between these two toy example data frames?
So that would be only 1 and 2, right? Because those are the only ones that are common to both.
Correct. So for inner join, you would only have rows 1 and 2, rows 1 and 2, and there wouldn't be any NAs because it's only going to have the commonality. So there's no rows and columns that will be NAs. And Zoe gave us a correct, very correct answer for left join. I need to remember how to erase. Left click to erase. Okay. And so if I remember correctly what you said, Zoe, you said X is our left, so we're going to have all 1, 2, 3. And for 1 and 2, we're going to have an extra Y column from here, but then for row 3, the Y column is just going to have an NA because there's no presence of a key 3. There is no match, basically, in the Y data frame for row 3. What about right join? Using the same logic that if left join keeps all the rows of X, right join keeps all the rows of Y.
I can talk again.
Sure.
I believe since now we're doing right join, all of the columns and rows for the data frame Y would still exist. And then for the X data frame, we'd again only have the 1 and the 2 because we don't have a third column or a third row in data frame Y.
Yeah, and then for row 4, the X column is going to have an NA in there because there's no match for row 4. Great. And then finally, full join. What do folks think about? So this would be the Venn diagram. So if you have a Venn diagram, this is like both things. What would that look like? And feel free to speak up again if you already, that's fine.
So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4.
Agreement. Thank you. Yeah, so it would actually have rows 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and it would have for X, there would be an NA for row 3 and X here. There's going to be an NA. Oh gosh, I'm going to not do that. That was I can't free write on the screen very well. And then for row 4 and Y, it's going to have an NA under X, but it's going to ultimately have 4 rows. So inner join, it gives you 2 rows. Left join gives you 3, 1, 2, 3. Right join gives you 3, 1, 2, 4. And full join gives you all 4 with and the only one that doesn't have any NAs is the first one. The others are going to have an NA where there is no match in the opposite data frame. Right, and Kristina put this diagram up. Ooh, I have seen versions. Yes, I've seen versions of this before. I somehow neglected to put them in here. I would just focus on the first 4 here. Let's not think about anti-joins just yet, but yeah, very, very good work. Okay, so next I want to talk a little bit about our package versions because we're moving on to the parts. That's just joins in general. We're going to talk about dplyr 1.1 now, which was released pretty recently. And the question is, should you update? And according to people who are on the internet and use code every day, the answer is yes, probably. And one quote that's relevant to that is that frequency reduces difficulty. If you know it's going to be hard, if it's something that's hard for you, do it more often so it becomes easier. This is not a lesson, again, that I've been able to inculcate in my daughter. She does not believe in frequency reduces difficulty. She says difficulty things that she does not want to do them. But we're adults, and we know, sometimes it might not be your first inclination, but if you know it's good for you. On the other hand, I personally updated for this workshop, and then I had to spend it didn't take me 3 days in the sense that I spent 3 days working on it, but it took me 3 days between when I figured out that one of my other packages broke and until I found the solution. And I didn't find the solution until I posted a question on the internet and felt a little bit like an idiot, like, oh man, well, people think I don't know how to even update my own packages because I had such difficulty with it. Anyway, I understand both sides, but there is a reason to keep updated, which is that once things are moved on to the new version, folks aren't going to be maintaining the old versions as much. And so in terms of like errors or bugs, they're going to be working on that in dplyr 1.1, or like if you have new feature requests or whatever, they're working on that in the next version. They're not going to go back to the old versions and fix those. So sometimes if you run into a problem, people have said, again, people on the internet say, sometimes when you run into a problem, updating gets you the solution because next version includes the solution. Eric, please chime in.
I just also wanted to chime in and say that, there's no rules that when somebody updates a package that it can't break your old code. It's totally allowed for somebody to make a new version of a package that like completely changes the way a function works, but most people don't do that. And in particular, the packages in the tidyverse, like dplyr, they have like exceptionally good practices to make sure that changes are not going to break your code as long as you're updating somewhat frequently. So there's they have rules about like when something changes, that change can't be what's called a breaking change for like 2 or 3 versions. So the first time when it first gets introduced, you're going to get a warning message every 8 hours saying, hey, here's a new way to do things, update your code. The next version is going to tell you every time you use it, hey, we're going to phase this out pretty soon. Here's a new way to do things. And it's not going to be until, several versions later that something actually stops working. So it's usually for tidyverse packages, it's usually relatively very safe to update them. Doesn't always, sometimes you'll break things. You'll have to change something in your analysis code, but they usually make it pretty easy to figure out what you do need to update. But it's not true of all packages. It's optional.
There's no enforcement of backwards compatibility. People on the internet, I'm not trying to say that to make them seem less trustworthy. I just mean that folks like the package developers and Jenny Bryan and even our team, like we spend literally every day in R and like doing stuff in R. And so for us, it's just a regular tool of the trade. And it's pretty frequent that we have to update things and it's not as difficult. If it is something that you're working on one analysis and you've been working on it for your dissertation, and it's been going on for 3 years, I can totally see why you would not want to update because you want that thing that you started 3 years ago to still work. That's also where Renv comes in, by the way. So I'm glad Eric talked about that earlier. If you have more questions, I've been exhorting Eric to maybe teach a workshop on Renv and get it out in the hands of more people in the community. Carla, go ahead.
I just had a comment about updating our packages and in general any software based on my own experience working on my dissertation. My rule was, if I'm on a deadline, I'm not updating anything.
That's probably smart.
Especially if I'm working towards my dissertation, I already have a date or, a submission deadline or something.
Absolutely.
If it's working, I'm not updating anything. If I'm starting to work or something or in the middle of my analysis and there's a new version, I usually update it. But if there is a deadline and everything seems to be working, I just don't touch it. Yeah.
Yeah, updating all of your R packages is like a really tempting procrastination thing to do, but it's like the worst thing you can do when you're like, man, I have this deadline coming up. I don't really feel like working on it. Maybe I'll update all my R packages. Don't do it. Yeah. Go for a walk instead. Anything else?
Clean your bathroom. I don't know. Okay. Yep, and Andrew seconds me on the please teach a Renv workshop, Eric. getting other people to.
Yeah, we'll do it. We'll put it on the list for sure.
Okay, so what is this difference now? In dplyr, you guys may have seen these left joins already. You're going to join X to Y, and it's by equals this key. And so if it's the same key, and in this case, our keys are identical, like plot underscore ID is good, and species underscore ID are identical between our three tables or three data frames. So we just have to enter it once. There's also this syntax. You can use this named vector to try to match. If there's both the same plot ID, but one is called plot ID with no underscore and the other one has an underscore, for example. Saves you time and stress if you just name them the same thing to begin with, but I don't always keep to that practice myself. So this is the version that you guys have already experienced, and if you've ever done any joining whatsoever, this is probably the most likely. These two are the most likely formats of that function. Now, the limitation here is that they have to be the same. You have to you can only join columns when they are equal to each other. And for things like plot ID and species ID, that makes a lot of sense. You only want to join it when like the species BA or whatever is also the same as species ID BA over here. Otherwise, why would you want to match them? But there are cases in which you might want more flexibility in defining it's not just an equal that I want. Sometimes I want it to be great. I want to match everything that's greater than, or maybe in certain range of a date or something. I mean, again, I use time series a lot, so that's my #1 request. And you can do it. I've figured out workarounds. I've done for loops before to work around this. It felt like there should be some nice, clean dplyr syntax for this, shouldn't there? And now there is. Because they've added, instead of having this argument to a function that's this by, they have a helper function that's called join by. And in this join by, so before where you had to the actual exact column names, in this function, you can, in quotes, you can just type the column names here directly. And if it's just a simple equals, then you can just do key, the name of your key, so species ID, or you could do species ID, species underscore ID, double equals species dot ID or something. But because there's this equal, you could just as easily put in greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, or other kind of functions that you would want to match and join two tables by. So that's the I mean, there are other upgrades too, but this is the one that affects me the most directly. So I was very excited to hear about this when Eric let me know. Okay, this is kind of repeating what I was just saying, but the join syntax in dplyr is limited to exact matches. The key in Y has to match the key in X exactly. And with join by, you can have much more flexible construction of the specification of how to join. You said key is greater than, then 1 only matches 1, but 2 can match 1 or 2, and 3 can match 1 or 2 for like joining our super toy X and Y data frames. It might be difficult right now for you to think of why would I want to join something by greater than. We're making lots more rows for ourselves. Like, when would I need this? But I made an example for us with the ratdat stuff that hopefully will bring that into a bit further clarity. Okay, so you have the basic one that you don't even need to define necessarily is the equality. Then you can have inequality, greater than or greater than equals to, less than or less than or equals to. You can have this helper function called closest. Maybe you just want to find all the values that are closest to another value. That could be useful. And there's also overlap helpers, and this usually is some combination of inequality. So you could build it with inequalities, or you could use these helper functions. There's between, within, or overlaps, and you can read the documentation on exactly how those work as well. But let's try. Well, first we have to join the old data set together. So let's do that first. I'm going to go back to here. So we're going to use this left join and this join by function now that we all have, I think we all have dplyr 1.1. Let's go back to our dplyr joins and let's do this. Let's see. So let's see, let's make another section using enters using left join. So I'm going to do, well, I think the first thing to do is just maybe complete, let's call it complete _1, because I want to do it just one at a time for us. You can also pipe joins into each other, but I think that gets a little bit more advanced what's going on. Let's do it really basic. Let's put, as Zoe said, let's put the surveys clean on the left. And let's join it with species first. Species clean. And we can, actually, I think we can just leave it like this. And it will tell you by is this join by species ID. And that's because it looks at the column names and it looks for that exact match. And in this case, it worked because our column names are exactly the same. And it assumes equality. So if you don't put anything else, if you don't specify anything else, it's going to go for that double equals, right? It's exact matches only. And so now we have this complete, and I'm not going to view it necessarily, but if we did dim on this complete one, we have the same number of rows as our surveys clean, which is good, which is what we wanted. Just a reminder here, 18,676, 18,676. But now we have more columns, whereas before we had, let's see, 9 columns. We have added 4 columns. That does, math doesn't quite work out. Oh, but we also, species ID was repeated. So, yeah. We've got species and taxa at the end there. Okay. So someone want to type or shout out to me? What if we want to take this and join it also to the plots clean? What should I do? But there's many possible ways we could do this. Iris or Brian, anybody want to volunteer who hasn't had a chance to speak up yet?
Left join, open parenthesis, complete 1, comma, plot screen. And I think it will join by plot ID.
Right, and we do that extra specifically by adding plot join by plot ID in there. Very good. And now we can see over here, complete 2 is the same exact number of observations or rows, but now it's got a 13th column in there. We can click on it and scroll over and haha, now we've got plot type in there. And now we can check. So the other way you could have done this is to pipe them into each other, but I'm going to leave it like this in the interest of time. We're not here to learn about typing. We're trying to practice joins, right? Now we can use bind rows on complete old and complete 2. So let's call it, let's see, complete _ new. And that's where we can use this bind rows. Bind _ rows, excuse me. And we can put complete old. Oh, I can spell. No, I can't. Complete 2 on here. Send that over. And we didn't check first, right? We should have probably checked first, like full names of complete 2. Is that in the col names of complete old? And it's all true. So even though they're not, I know they're not lined up correctly, like in terms of which one came first, all of the ones that are in 1 in this new one that we've joined together from our new data all the way up to 2000 or whatever, they're the same exact column names as our incomplete old, which is gives me confidence to do this.
Wait, with the in, not quite. You'd want to do it the other way around too, right? To make sure that like there's not
Right.
extra
in
column
this
names.
Case, it's also
you have to be careful using in because it'll like say, oh yeah, all of the column names in complete 2 are incomplete old, but there could be extra columns in complete old that are not accounted for. So I would probably flip those two and just do the in the other way around also.
I know I trust this because I know that they each have 13.
Or that works too.
Yeah. So if you knew that they had the same number of columns and just wanted to check, but Kristina is also right that this only does one way. And so if they happen to have different numbers, you'd also want to check this other way.
Or just be careful with in when you're using it.
Yeah, it doesn't go both directions. Like the order matters with the % in %. For sure. Okay. And because the names are the same, order doesn't matter with bind underscore rows the way that it would. I don't think we could do R bind on this, for example. You can? Is R bind now new too? Does it not require?
Or do the column names just happen to be in the same
result?
order?
I don't know. I don't think they were in the right order because month, day, year used to be up here and stuff. So interesting. They fixed it in R bind too. What? Okay. Well, I guess I'm not sure now. Now I'm trying things on the fly. I guess I shouldn't do it during a workshop. But now I don't know, except that if you want to stay in the tidyverse syntax, the function is bind rows. And it used to be the R bind did not like it if they were not. I remember distinctly dealing with like moving the columns around and stuff. Am I making that up? Did anyone else experience that with R bind?
According to the help file of bind rows, R bind, it says it's similar to R bind, but the output will contain all the columns that appear in any of the inputs. So it might be that R bind removes columns that aren't in common. So if you had an extra column in complete old, for example, and you did bind rows, it would continue that column down with NAs for the new entries. But maybe R bind doesn't do that.
This .id thing, right?
You can do that also. That doesn't help us in this case, really. But I guess if you wanted to have an indicator whether it was the new or the old, you could use that. And you could say ID
I'm not saying it helps us in this case. This is another difference between R
It's another difference. And also bind rows can take a list of data frames. It's not just 2 data frames. It could take, it can bind, 10 data frames.
Oh, so it's do.call. Okay.
Yeah, so there's still some nice features of bind underscore rows, even if, R bind still works.
Yeah, this is nice. I didn't realize this until I looked at the documentation for this gives us a extra column. It's now got 14 variables, but it's got where is source? Is it first? And it tells us which of the 2 X or Y basically, or which of the things we put in bind rows, the first one or the second one, each observation came from. So in case you ever wanted to be like, oh, well, where is that error? That this row has an error in it? Which data set do I need to go back to figure out which it came from? Source can maybe be an easier way to help you.
Is it possible to use the name of the object instead of 1 or 2 for that?
Yeah, it has to be a named. You have to give it a named list. So if the thing you put into bind rows was a named list, it would work. So you do list, or something like that. It probably works.
I don't know if this works. Let's find out. Aha!
Yeah, that works. You just have to give them names.
So yeah, or you could put maybe some kind of date or indicator of when it was that this data set was cleaned, that kind of thing. Learning new things. Okay, but this going back now to well, I don't know. We're short on time, so I don't know if I should actually have us do this, except that this is I'm just going to explain the setup, and you guys have the code to run this yourself, the code and the data to run this yourself. And actually with these slides, you can like click the copy button and actually copy whole chunks of this into your script as well. But the example I came up with is, say that you have the dates of the monsoon for all these years, and you're particularly interested in the rodents that were caught during the monsoon. Maybe they're expected to be, I don't know, way more or something than otherwise. But the monsoon, of course, doesn't start the same day every year. And there's different definitions of monsoon start date, but there's one that I've used in the past, and it's different for every year. It's the day on which 10% of the total July, August, September rainfall was achieved. That's one way to define the start of the monsoon. It's a different day every year. So you can't just go in and say, I want July, August, September, because it could be, you know, the start date is different. So you might have a data frame of monsoons for every year that has a start date and an end date. They all end on the same date, but they start on different days for different years. If we have this join by, and I had to do a little thing to get the dates to match again. So using an as always dealing with dates, it's like an extra layer of complexity. But we can do an inner join. So I only want to extract the days, the observations of rodents from within this range of monsoon that is different for each year. So I'm joining by year because I want the year to match, but I'm also wanting the date in my surveys new or complete new to be greater than this monsoon start, greater than or equal to the monsoon start column, and less than or equal to the monsoon end column. So let's see, is there anything else? And this is a case where you can, like for me, it was easier to just type it out this way, but this is actually between is the helper function for it. So you can do between, and then this is like the from one, you want the date of your X to be between the M start and the MY of M end of your Y data frame. And you still want the year here. If you don't have the year, it's still fine. It will just end up, you'll have year.x and year.y instead of knowing that they're identical. So adding the year there just saves you an extra duplicated column for no reason. Plus you won't, until you realize you've made that mistake, you won't even know why year doesn't work anymore because it changed to year.x and year.y. So this is a case of using inner joins. We came up with an example that both uses the non-equi function of join by and uses inner join. So that's as contrived as I could get for that. And then you can see, you'll be able to see the dimensions and how they've changed. There were a total of 35,000 observations overall and 3,500 observations during the monsoons of these years. Okay, I'm just in time. Sorry we didn't get to do the last part hands-on. Hands-on things always take longer than I expect. So further reading references, this R4DS chapter, really nice. There's some blog posts when they were releasing dplyr 1.1. I've linked specifically to this part about join improvements, but they also have other things that improved. So if you changed, so if you want to know about those, go read some of those blog posts. There's a nice vignette on basically two table verbs, join verbs. Join are these two table verbs. And this is the link to that Jenny Bryan suggestion of how frequently to update your R packages. And that's it. But there's a message in here from Kristina. Our group is hiring. This is our slides. Our group is hiring. I have that pulled up to remind folks. Remind to drop in, although it seems to have slowed down. Let us know if you have any questions about that. And also ResBaz, I wanted to make sure to give a shout out. ResBaz is coming in not too long from now. It's short this year, 17th through 19th. And Eric and Kristina are going to be teaching at ResBaz. So I'm helping organize it. And then Eric is going to teach. Mm-hmm.
Me too. My session's
yeah.
on Wednesday.
Oh yeah, you are too.
What are you teaching?
Oh,
GitHub.
Oh yeah, that's right. Nice.
Always want more GitHub.
Oh,
yes.
I wish yours was before mine.
It was before yours, and then we had to reorganize the rooms. It just always happens that way. It always happens that way.
I'm gonna have to do like a super short crash course on it, I think, for mine. But yeah,
Well, Heidi's
I'll
teaching
tell
a
people to go to your
refresher on
workshop
Git
to learn
on
more.
Monday.
Oh, nice, good.
So I don't know what she's planning for that, but she's got a refresher. So
Oh,
maybe
good.
using
Okay,
some-
that's before my. That's probably more
before
important than the. Yeah, I'm not going to be doing the collaborating really part of it. So that's good.
Right. So Eric's teaching making your first R package, and Kristina is reteaching. Where is Kristina on here? And Kristina's going to be here in Tucson in person. If you've never met Kristina in person, I mean, like, this is your chance. And you live in Tucson, this is your chance. She's teaching the basics of regex, and I missed her first time she taught it. I'm hoping not to miss it this time. This will be so the idea here is that room B, depending on which university is after its name, is going to be in person. Oh, except Alex is not teaching. Anyway, folks with a UA, NAU, or ASU after their name are in person, but they will also be streamed. And this year, these sessions will not be recorded. You have one chance. We're not going to deal with recording this year. So. Thank you guys for sticking it out to the end. We definitely declined
yeah.
participants
I have a question
there,
for people. I know somebody had issues installing mass. I'm still dealing with that. Do you know how to fix that?
What's the issue?
I had an issue and I just installed it through the install packages.
Yeah, you can just install. So my guess is, so RN is like having you install a very specific version of a package.
Okay.
And sometimes on some systems, that means it has to like build it from source. And maybe you don't have the tools to build an R package from source installed on your computer. And that's my guess.
Okay.
And so for this, you don't really need that specific version of the mass package. So you can just install it and in the usual way, and it will work.
Okay.
But I think that's what's going on. And I see. I see your error message, and that's kind of my guess of what's happening from it. I don't know for sure, but my guess is that it's like trying to compile the package and it's not working.
Okay, so install it from packages install.
Yep, that should work.
And if that fails,
email us.
Yeah, it is failing again. Okay, I will email you. Thank you.
Yeah, send us an email. It's cct-datascience@arizona.edu. And we have drop-in hours on Tuesday mornings.
Yeah. Okay, I'll join
You can come by.
Carla, I've actually had that mass problem before, not related to this. I literally closed our studio and reopened it, and it fixed it. Not saying
Oh,
that
nice.
yeah,
You might just have to restart your R session or something like that.
Okay, sounds